Hey Phone Dog viewers, Beau HD here, and what I have in my hands is the all-new LG G3 and the slightly older, year-old LG G2. Both phones were pioneers for their time as they were some of the first phones to offer higher resolution displays and faster processors than the competition. Now obviously the G3 will have better specs than its younger brother, the G2, but I want to compare the two and see just how much they differ and whether or not you guys should upgrade to the LG G3. So taking a look at the design of the two devices, first and foremost, they both are very similar looking as they both have those razor thin bezels and the display takes up almost the entire front of each of the two devices. Actually, really the main difference takes place on the back. Yes, both devices have all the buttons on the back, and yes, there's a camera sensor and flash on each. But the G3 has slightly larger back-facing buttons that are much more pronounced and easier to press, and it has a much better back cover in general. It looks like brushed metal and it just blows the G2 away. Honestly, the redesigned back buttons aren't that much of a difference compared to just how much of a difference the new plastic brushed metal back makes on the LG G3. Now, like I mentioned earlier, when each of these phones were released to the public, they were among the first to introduce higher resolution displays. The G2 introduced a Full HD 1080p IPS display, while the LG G3 recently introduced a 2K UHD display with a 1440 by 2560 resolution, making it one of the first phones to have such a high-res display. And while everyone is marveling at just how amazing the G3 is, unless you hold the G3 directly next to a phone with a lower resolution display, you won't really be able to tell the difference. The 1080p display on the G2 still easily competes with the G3. I mean, sure, the G3 is technically better, and yeah, don't get me wrong, it looks amazing. But in my opinion, it just isn't as much of a noticeable difference than the jump from 720p to 1080p was. And when it comes to the processing power of each device, we sort of have a similar situation. So inside the LG G2, we have a quad-core Snapdragon 800 processor with 2GB of RAM, while in the LG G3 we have a quad-core Snapdragon 801 processor with 3GB of RAM, depending on which variant you buy. But if we compare the two when it comes to opening apps and searching the web, there isn't too much of a difference. The G3 does beat out the LG G2 in most scenarios, but here's the thing. Sure, the processing power might not be too much of a difference on each phone, but unlike the displays where I can easily dismiss the fact that you won't be able to really tell the difference, when you're searching the web or opening an app, every second counts and it really adds up. And for that reason, I'd say the G3 may seriously win you over from the sheer processing power alone. But one area that has a clear winner in has to do with the software. So as you probably know, the G2 and G3 are both running a custom skin by LG on top of stock Android, but the two differ a lot in that the G2 is running such a heavy customized version of Android that no matter where you go, you just can't get a break. All the icons are super saturated with those cartoony looking colors. They're almost 3D looking and they're just plain old ugly to look at. It almost feels like I'm using a child's device at times. But the G3 on the other hand does still run a heavily customized skin on top of Android, but at least it doesn't necessarily look that way. The icons are much more flat, the colors are dull and more premium looking, and everything just doesn't look like it's popping out at you. So I'd say if you had to pick the software between the two, you're definitely going to want to go with the LG G3. Although if you're looking for a stock Android experience, none of these devices will probably satisfy you. Now, as for how the cameras function on the two devices, it might just surprise you. Both the G2 and G3 have 13 megapixel optically stabilized sensors, but the G3 has something rather unique in that it has a laser autofocus sensor on the back next to its camera sensor, which allows it to snap pictures in crazy fast time, 0.276 seconds fast. And it also has this cool feature that lets you tap to focus while also simultaneously taking a picture, and since the autofocus is just so quick, this feature actually works well, especially when you want to snap a picture of a moving object. This is compared to the LG G2, while not terrible, it just doesn't offer the same refocusing speed found on the G3. It uses software to focus instead of infrared light, and as you can see, the results are slow, and a feature that lets you tap to focus and take a picture just wouldn't really work well here. But if we compare the results of the two cameras, we'll see that the quality of the images are good on each, but the G3 does have more crisp images overall, with more detail and an overall better color accuracy. So if you want a top-of-the-line smartphone camera, the G3 might just be the winner here. But one area that is very important has to do with the battery life. Both the G2 and G3 have 3000 mAh batteries, which immediately make you think, okay, obviously the phone with the larger, more pixel-dense display and faster processor would require more power, therefore the battery life is probably worse, right? And not really. The G3 is optimized so well that it actually learns what you use and will automatically configure itself to maximize power all the time. I found that the first week I owned the device, the battery life was so-so, but it adapted to how I use the device, and it actually has lasted me an entire day of heavy usage, which I can say the same about for the LG G2, even without its battery optimization. I found battery life to be just about the same for the two devices, but what might really tip the scale is the fact that you can remove and replace the battery on the LG G3, something you can't do on the LG G2. And so for that reason, the G3 wins in this category, but not by much. And so overall, while the G3 does in fact triumph the G2 in a lot of categories, the difference is really going to depend upon how important the features are for you. Considering the G3 is a brand new phone that costs hundreds more than the G2, the difference might not be enough for you to upgrade. But let me know if the G3 is worth the upgrade over the LG G2 by leaving me a comment right down below. I always love reading what you guys have to say. And so with that said, thanks for watching guys, I'll see you in the next one. See ya.